Hey, I've been waiting for this all year. It's gonna get spooky. I'm making Mikey as the monster from the murky marsh. So I'm using a knockoff 1984 comic turtle, and I put him in some hot water, so I stretched out his fingers to kind of get the pose I want, but they're really skinny. And then I drilled some holes in his toes where the long nails I'm gonna put in are gonna go. And now I'm using my Dremel to sand his toes skinnier, because I want to make them skinnier. Yeah, I guess I didn't have to say that. But anyway, I love making these universal monsters. I get to really be creative. And I've done Mikey before. No, I've done different Mikeys. I've done monsters before. I've done the creature from the Black Lagoon, but I did Leo, like the original Playmates toy, and then NECA did him better than I did. So now I want to do a Mikey, because monster from the murky marsh, and Mikey, it's alliteration, I like it, I'm a rapper. So I used Apoxie Sculpt. I started on his shell, and I did just a bunch of lines and some fins going up. Then I used Spackling, and that dries in like 15-20 minutes, where the Apoxie Sculpt takes like 24 hours. And then that's EVA foam floor mats, and those are the pieces on the edges, so I just glued them together so I could put him somewhere where he could lay on his back and the fin would stick through the gap in the middle. And I just keep building. I started this one earlier while I was working on some other projects, because every day I just do another layer of Apoxie Sculpt because it takes long to dry. If I do a lot, I'll mess it up by just squishing it with my fingers while it's still wet and setting. Or the longer you handle it, the stickier your fingers get, and the harder it is to work with it, because it'll stick to you more than it'll stick to what you're doing. And so you saw maybe those little things in the dish there. They're for cake decoration, and they're just little circles that I can poke in to get detail of circles or scales. And so I keep at it, and now I'm doing his head, and I've decided to put a fin on his head. I did a drawing of kind of what I'm going to go for, but the fin on his head was just a last minute decision just to make him different. I want to make him very different than the one that NECA did, and also still make him look like the creature. But yeah, then I put a lot of lines on his chest for like ruffles, and I decided against that, so now I'm just sanding them down so it'll be flat with just a little bit of lines in. And then I have my little vacuum that's like my favorite thing when I'm doing this, because I just vacuum him, all the dust that I sanded, and make a clean workspace. Yeah, so I did a snake of the Apoxie Sculpt, and I put a bunch on all his fingers, and then I wrapped the toothpick ends that I cut off and put them in those. And then I'm going to put the two together because it's easier than just putting a whole finger with the nail at once. And next, doing a little at a time, I decided fins on his arms. I put fins on his legs. I'm going over his shoulders with the little circle tool, and trying to make it look like scales. But I'm also going to do a base for him because I have big plans for this guy and the next three that I'm making. But the thing I was using, since I made his feet so big, it was too small, that piece of wood there. So I added on the side, and now I'm using, this is Milliput. It's like Apoxie Sculpt, but it's softer, and it only takes 4 or 5 hours to dry. And now I'm cutting more toothpicks, so use the pointy ones will be like grass, and then the not pointy ones will be maybe twigs or sticks. So I'm going to use his belt. I just trimmed down his belt, and then the knot on his belt, and I'm going to make that his new bandana back hanging down. So after I glued it together, I used a little bit of the spackling to smooth out the joints and then to clean up his face, and I added a little bit more detail on the base with the spackling. Now I'm just sanding it, and then I use a chip brush, easy to get everything off and ready to be vacuumed, because the vacuum doesn't really get in all the little details. Then I glued a circle onto the bottom of the base to make it a little raised up, and I finally am starting to paint. I'm going to start off with a white primer mixed with a little bit of regular white acrylic just to thicken it up, and then I do his mask while on the bandana, and I'm just dry brushing over these tree trunks that I 3D printed, just because I want to leave it dark in the cracks and crevices and just pick up the details with the lighter paint, because I'm going to go over them again. Then I mixed in with that white primer some green and blue. Yeah, it was hunter green and navy blue to do my base coat on him, and so I just cover him totally with that. Everywhere that's going to be green. And and even his chest, which won't be green, but I'll have some green hints. And I have burnt umber that I do for all the base pretty much, but I didn't do the tree trunks the same because I want the bottom floor to be darker. And now I have a bark brown that I'm using for the bark on the tree trunks, but it's pretty much the same as the burnt umber. When it goes down, it's alright. It still looks a little lighter. And then I'm just going on his chest, trying to get into the little details and add some more little details and variations in color. And I go on the deep spots in his shell and a little bit on the fin. I'm just adding as many colors as I can to make it look natural, but all that blend together. And I have a raw sienna now, so I dry brush that over the tree trunks, and now I'm dry brushing it over his chest. And I want that to all be kind of that color, but I want to leave in the cracks some of the green and the brown, and then just lightly going over the rest of his skin to pick up some of the details more. And yeah, that's I mainly use the Leo as a reference of what I don't want it to look like, because I want it to be different. So I have some wrought iron because I'm doing an anchor, and I have some chains that are going to wrap around him for his belt, because they did a net. I'm going to do a belt but out of chains. So that's a reference of a chain, because why not? Putting references for everything else I'm using as a reference. But I made the chain off memory. No, I 3D printed a whole bunch of chains. Those were the ones that best worked, and so I'm using those. Now I have a leaf green. I dry brushed over all of his skin and a little bit on the base to add some green there. I'd add some hunter green to some of that too. Then I go with a neon green for his eyes and a little bit on the base. I thought it was glow in the dark, but it's actually glow under black light. But when it does glow, it looks cool, but it's still like a bright kind of neon green without any black light, so that is fine. But I go with a hot saffron. It's like a bright, strong, vibrant orange for his mask, and then a daffodil yellow. Just dry brush over pretty much everything to pick up all the details. It's just a light kind of pale yellow that's gonna bring everything out and make everything pop and just covering him. Then I mix some white with that yellow to go over. 3D printed a bunch of fish bones. Then I have black that I'm doing his pads in to make them stand out more against the green. And then I decided I want to go with some gold dry brush over his fins and his chest, because in some of the color pictures I saw of the creature from the Black Lagoon, he had kind of gold tint. Then I mixed some water with the brown and the raw sienna I was using to make a bit of a wash to dirty up those fish bones. And I 3D printed like 6-pack holders. It's gonna be, you know, pollution. He has a whole backstory. I'm doing, UV resin to make it watery on the floor of the base. So I put them all together. That's what he looks like. He was just a mild-mannered mutant turtle accountant, and he was walking through the marsh, and he experienced some ooze that turned him into the monster from the murky marsh, Mikey. So I hope you liked it. Thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, remember, always keep your head up. And next week more monsters, so peace.